I could venture to say that we've all had a journey with someone going through a troubled time or an illness, and we know the suffering that goes along with that. But often when we read these passages, it makes me wonder what it was like on that day for those friends and acquaintances of Jesus, those who really knew Him, those who knew who He is, right? Those that knew that Jesus is the Christ, not those that turned against Him. How hard it must have been to watch Him as He traveled with His cross, and to watch Him as He was on trial, and all of those things, and the disciples who had abandoned Him, watching from a distance. I can only imagine what was going through their hearts and their minds as all of these events were unfolding. And we as Catholic Christians, we come here today to venerate that cross because we understand what was going on. You see, and sometimes in a case like theirs, it was too close to the trees to see the forest. But we are far enough away to understand what He was doing for us. To understand that Jesus' love is what made Him volunteer to be nailed to that cross. You see, at Christmas, I made a statement for Christmas, in the homily at Christmas, that for us as Christians, that we came to celebrate the birth of Christ. But the celebration of that birth of Christ means nothing if the wood of the cradle doesn't become the wood of the cross. Because that was Jesus' purpose. His purpose was to come here and to die for us. And He says it numerous times to remind us that He was going to take our sins upon Himself. You see, the wood of the cradle has to become the wood of the cross. If we celebrate the birth of Jesus, we have to celebrate His death, and especially His resurrection. Because without the death, there could be no resurrection. If He had not surrendered Himself to that cross. Another thought, and we come into our churches and we see the crucifix with the body of Jesus nailed to the cross, and it's all clean and I'm going to say pretty. And then we get a glimpse, like in the movie The Passion of the Christ. We get a small glimpse of what He really looked like, what He really went through. And I've seen that movie numerous times, more than I'd like to count. And I can't make it through that part, those scenes, without crying. Because we have to know, we have to remember that He did it for us. That He asked us to surrender ourselves to Him because He surrendered Himself for us. Are we really faithful disciples? He said the burden was easy, and His burden was easy, and it was really easy to follow Him. But the world gets in the way. Our challenge is to be able to move the world out and to be able to focus on Him. Him who died for us. He who rose for us. As we take all of these things in, as we walk through the stations of the cross, and as we listen to His passion, take some time to just sit down and think about where would you have been had you been there on that day? Had you been in a crowd, or had you been with those people who were mourning His death? See, sometimes if we look at our lives, it's going to be hard to decide where we would have been. But we know where He was for us. Because that wood of the cross, on this day we celebrate, that wood of the cradle became the wood of the cross for us.